Hello, and welcome to Sowing the Word Ministries and Conversations about Marriage. My name is Charles Perkins, and the title of this message is, But I'm an Artist. Back in the days when I was a musician and on the road, I used to wonder why so many musicians, entertainers, artists, and other creative people had such a hard time staying married. As I began to listen to and watch some of my fellow musicians, I saw a pattern in their relationships. As far as they were concerned, the relationship was basically all about them. The attitude seemed to be basically this: what I'm doing is important, so let's you and me get together and help me achieve my dream. And when it came to the spouse's needs, the attitude was, I don't have time for that mundane stuff. After all, I'm an artist. Now, these thoughts may not have been verbally expressed, but nonetheless, they were lived out. The artist, the creative one, always seemed to think that his or her dreams and needs were more important than the needs of their spouses. If they did condescend to listen to how their spouse's day at work went, they did it grudgingly as if they were doing the spouse a big favor. But they expected their spouses to listen with bated breath, hanging on to every word, and be totally engaged as they talked on and on and on about their own careers. An interesting observation. When I first got into ministry, I saw the same pattern and attitude in ministers towards their spouses. Only there was an added declaration. After all, I'm doing God's work. How can the poor spouse compete with God? So, you have the spouse of an artist or minister given all the emotional, physical, psychological, financial, and moral support she or he can, and getting almost none in return. Meanwhile, the artist has this sense of entitlement in the relationship. He or she is pouring all of himself into his art form, so he deserves to be supported. She deserves to be understood. It's kind of like the artist saying, let's both of us get together and fall in love with me. But the spouse, on the other hand, after a while, the spouse gets tired of all this self-centeredness and leaves. Another marriage bites the dust, and the artist can't even see what he did wrong. He just didn't understand me. It's always the spouse's fault. Always the spouse's fault. Now, the catch is this. In order to be good or great at anything, especially artistically speaking, you have to be self-centered. There's no other way to accomplish a high level of professionalism in your craft. It doesn't matter if you're an actor, singer, dancer, musician, painter, writer. You have to have a degree of self-centeredness to excel in your craft. Some art forms, such as painting and writing, are very solitary crafts. You do your best work when you're alone. Practicing to improve your dance or playing skills is normally done alone. Thinking out the way you want to express a certain move or musical note is done alone. Artists spend a lot of time alone. Now, other artists understand that. My brother-in-law is a sculptor. I write poetry and music. We understand each other and our need to isolate ourselves in our respective creative caves. But do we have the right to expect our wives, who are not artists, to automatically understand? How can they if we don't let them into us? The problem is not being self-centered. The problem is not knowing when to turn the self-centered off. Most entertainers that I came up with were self-centered all of the time. They never learned to turn it off. After seeing so many marriages break up, and I have to admit most of them had some really cool spouses, I learned that I could be self-centered. I learned I could be self-centered when I was into my creative thing, getting it together. But when I came out, it was time to focus on my wife and my family. My wife is a teacher. At the time, she taught second grade. Not that I have anything against the second grade, but ordinarily I wouldn't care to be involved in a conversation about the second grade. But I was interested in my wife, and she was interested in the second grade. So I became interested in the second grade. If I wanted her to share and understand my world, I had to do the same for her. When I was home off the road, I tried to take full advantage of our time together. We tried to make the most of our time together because we never knew how long I would be at home. A lesson learned from this is, after all these years, even after I stopped playing music professionally, we still try to make the most of our time together. I wanted to excel in my marriage. I wanted to excel in my music. That meant in order for me to do both, I had to give something up. That something for me was sleep at the time. When I was home, the early part of the evening was spent with my son. He was in bed by 7:30. Then I would spend time with my wife until she fell asleep, which was usually around 11 or 12. And then I would do my creative thing. Being a night person, working on my craft until 3 or 4 in the morning was ideal. During that time, a part of that time, I was taking a class and had to be at school at 7 a.m. So I averaged about 3 hours of sleep a night. It worked. After all these years, we're still together and very much in love. The bottom line is I had to learn how to think like a husband, and she had to learn how to think like a wife. She did not marry a musician. She married a husband, and she deserved to have one. I was a musician on stage. I was a husband off stage. Entertainment marriages can work. Mine did. Ruby Dee and Ossie Davis had a beautiful, long marriage. If you want something badly enough, you will do what it takes to make it work. I'm encouraging you to want your marriage, and you will do the right thing.